news. It's also on the LBC app. If you want to take a look at it, you'll be left in no doubt as to how I feel about the events this week and what we as individuals can do. One of the parts of that piece that I wrote is addressed directly to the Prime Minister, who I thought, I know he was heckled, I know he's been shouted at for just saying words, and there's very much a degree to which that is true. But I heard a stronger message from him in that speech he gave from Downing Street. It echoed the strength that he showed and the commitment that he showed, both societally and judicially, in terms of the justice system, when the riots broke out immediately after the Southport killings. He said then, and I always remember that speech, we talked about it a lot that week on air. He said then, after Southport, and there'd been the initial riots in the Southport area that then obviously spread the following weekend, but he said in that week, they, the rioters, have shown us who they are. Now it's time for us to show them who we are. I thought it was a genius line. And I think he essentially didn't use the same line, but he essentially sent the same message. If you hear anti-Semitism happening, if you see anti-Semitism happening, if a Jewish person is being abused, verbally or otherwise, you have to intervene. You have to acknowledge, at the very least acknowledge it's happening. If you're too afraid to intervene, fine. But try not to be, would be my message. And I thought that comment after Southport from the Prime Minister applies so clearly to this situation as well. They, the anti-Semites, the people who would murder Jews for being Jews on the streets of London, they have shown us who they are. It's time for us to show them who we are. And that means you have to be a friend to your Jewish neighbours. You have to be a supporter to your Jewish neighbours. You have to stand with your Jewish neighbours. In this instance, on this issue. Simple as that. Your thoughts about whether you think you can do that? 0345 606 0973, the number to call. You can text 84850. I'm joined by Alex Hearn, writer and co-director, Labour Against Anti-Semitism, who will be guarding the metal gates outside his synagogue this weekend, and Lord Pickles. Eric Pickles, perhaps you're more familiar with him as joint chairman of the Holocaust Memorial Foundation. Good morning to you both. Alex Hearn, first of all, a tough week for you and all British Jews.
Yes, good morning. It's been a really frightening and frustrating week for the Jewish community who feel that we've been failed across the board, failed by successive governments to confront the issue, instead throwing money at protecting Jews from the hostile climate they allowed to fester without challenging a thing. It feels like years of constant hate have gone unchallenged, and when Jews challenge it, we've either been ignored or punished. And eventually the hate just became normal. Smashed windows of Jewish businesses have been waved away as these small acts of petty symbolism, as the Guardian writer called it. So what's happened is the spike in hate crimes just became permanent. And then there was a shooting, and then we heard more platitudes, and then they started burning our buildings and stabbing us. So there's a lot of anger, and there doesn't seem to be any social consequences to being anti-Semitic. Progressives can wave a swastika at a rally about assassinating the world's only Jewish state and face no reputational damage, and even in some cases, no arrest.
The Guardian journalist, whose article you alluded to about the smashing of windows in a Jewish business in London, has just been given a journalism award.
Right, which is typical. So someone wearing a Star of David at a rally will get arrested for triggering protesters, and someone who kind of incites hate is given an award. So hate is simply accepted. Jewish students are driven from campus. Only 1 in 5 students would now house share with a Jew, and Jewish patients are forced to hide their identity at medical appointments. So yesterday, Met Police Commissioner Mark Rowley wrote that Jews are at the centre of this ghastly Venn diagram of hate, and the Met Police struggle to get public pickup on the subject. And as you mentioned, the long and short of it is that in a few hours I'll be putting on a stab-proof vest to stand guard outside the electronic metal gates of my synagogue.
Lord Pickles, let me bring you in here on the conversation as well, and then we'll all three of us speak together. You're joint chairman of the Holocaust Memorial Foundation. If I remember correctly, you were community secretary at one point, weren't you?
Yeah, well, actually for 5 whole years.
Yeah. What have you been thinking about this week? What's been your reflection on everything that's happened and been said?
Well, I think the country is sleepwalking into disaster. Everyone is saying the right things now, but will they be saying the right things a week from now? We seem to be moving from crisis and outrage to another. We make these promises, we engage in word bingo about our thoughts with, etc., and this is not what we're about. And we don't seem to understand that the Jewish community is a fundamental part of British identity, and that it's not about an attack on them as an attack on us. It is an attack on us, full stop. The people who are doing this are wanting to undermine liberal democracy. And so we have shown a degree of tolerance towards intolerance, which is unsustainable. And we now need to start to take concrete action.
It's interesting to hear the Prime Minister has now said, or suggested, there could be a case for banning some protests. And I know that that's complicated, and I would be against banning protests almost entirely, but not entirely. But it's a sensitive issue, isn't it? There are calls for a suspension of pro-Palestinian marches. I think there's one large one organised in a couple of weekends' time. How should that be handled? Because the police are finding it difficult to police these as well, aren't they?
I mean, these are festivals of hate. They are calling about globalising the Intifada. Well, and we saw what that meant just a few days ago. We saw what it meant in Manchester. We saw what it meant on Bondi Beach. And I think there's been a degree of tolerance with these marches, which we've been all too ready to say, oh, well, when they say globalising the empire, they don't actually mean that. When they actually refer to coming for the truth, they don't actually mean that. It's a rhetorical thing. No, they mean exactly that. So I think it would be sensible to take at least a moratorium. Let's just calm down and let's not have more of these marches, because I think the problem is that the people who go on these have been associated with extreme anti-Semites.
Only some of the people, I think, who go on it, I think it's fair to say.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. Maybe I wasn't expressing myself terribly well. I said people who go along will be walking side by side with people who are extremists. And because normal people are on the marches, they give license. They encourage the more extremists to think, well, I can do this. I mean, it was really interesting, I thought. The chap who was climbing into the Israeli embassy with knives to saying, and I heard him on the news last night, why are you stopping me? I want to go inside. I want to commit a crime inside. Why are you stopping me? And I think the police have been too tolerant about that. I've been in meetings with senior officers where they've told me that some of these slogans are harmless. That from the river to the sea, just a jolly folk song. It's a hymn to ethnic cleansing. People who say, well, I'm not against Jews. I'm really against Zionism. Zionism is about the creation of Israel for the Jewish people to have their own place, and we've just allowed ourselves to be kind of fooled with that. And the kind of the ultimate thing was a chief constable from West Midlands appearing before a committee of the House of Commons and lying to that committee and finding the easy way to go out to agree where.
So just to be clear, to remind people, you're alluding to the West Midlands police chief lied to the committee in order to cover up the fact that he had made a choice to operate against Jews.
You're absolutely right, and because of the way in which he consulted, that he'd allowed a sort of strong Islamist influence into his perception and his training, and this is the problem, that we need to understand that people of goodwill, Jews, Muslims, Sikhs, Hindus, Christians, we are in this together. And if we don't, then we're all going to lose if we allow the extremists.
Choose reason over hatred. Always. Let me bring Alex back in. Alex Hearn, the Metropolitan Police Commissioner has revealed that he put to ministers this week, since Wednesday, that he needs and wants extra resources, including armed officers, in areas where there are larger Jewish populations, and not forever, but on a kind of semi-permanent for now basis because of the threat that's posed to Jewish people. How do you feel about that? Do you want that?
It's very sad that it's come to this, but this is the emergency measures that Britain needs to take. Extraordinary times require extraordinary measures. After the Charlie Hebdo massacre in France, the French government drafted in 10,000 troops to guard the Jewish community. So I think that there needs to be something dramatic right now, and there needs to be some proper concrete plans of how we are going to unpick this hate piece by piece and stand up to it, because as you saw with the booing and heckling of Keir Starmer in Golders Green, we've had enough of words. They are meaningless now. We need action.
Thank you very much indeed to both of you. To Alex Hearn, the last voice you heard, the co-director of Labour Against Antisemitism, and Lord Pickles, Eric Pickles, joint chair of the Holocaust Memorial Foundation, and as I suspected and remembered, former community secretary he was for 5 years in a Conservative.
Good morning, Sheila. Thanks for taking my call. I was speaking to your researcher just before, and I think the recent events in the last couple of years, the attacks on the Jewish community have been quite extensive, and antisemitism has been on the rise and rearing its ugly head, and unfortunately I don't think it's ever going to be removed. But I think one way that it can be addressed is that education is ultimately the only way that people will understand about historical events, understand the sort of problems that communities have had, and that's across all religions, whether it be the Holocaust with the Jews, whether it be the Windrush situation. Yeah. I think that in schools, I do some security for my daughter at school because I think it's important to protect her. You don't see that in churches, you don't see that, as far as I know, at mosques, etc.
Not typically, but perhaps sometimes at heightened moments. I mean, let's not forget that a Muslim man, was murdered in Finsbury Park Mosque by a man who travelled from Wales to do it, to just attack a Muslim in that mosque. So, it happens in other ways. But I think it's pretty obvious that there is an intense and focused attack happening on Jews, and that there has been for some time.
But when you look at, I've got an 11-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old daughter. They're not homophobic. They're not Islamophobic. They don't have views on people, etc. But when they get older, they get exposed to TikTok and YouTube and God knows what. Why isn't the government turning around and saying, look, the way that we can actually educate these people is by integrating it into the curriculum at school? Why aren't they talking?
Well, the Holocaust is the only historical event that is compulsory in school education, typically in history, but can also be in other areas of education. And I think that needs to be looked at, as in, is it good enough? Is the education on it good enough? And also we know that a huge number of schools have withdrawn from engaging with the Holocaust Educational Trust.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time since I was at school, and maybe I should check the position on inclusion on the Holocaust. I certainly, when I went to school, it was never part of the curriculum.
Was it not?
No, definitely not.
I'm so sorry, something's happened to my phone. My gosh. Sorry.
No, no problem at all. So,
that's never happened before.
What worries me is that I think there's been some commentators that have been speaking out recently that anti-Semitism now, unfortunately, it seems to be just a regular thing. Oh, it's just Jews. No, it's not an issue. And it's all very good and well with Keir Starmer saying he's going to try and protect the community with extra police, etc. But I don't think that's necessarily these people that undertake the attack.
No, it's deeper than that, isn't it? It's deeper than that. Thank you very much.